you know, and you got a car, you got a car, you got a car. I've never been in that position. What I do that manifests generosity is telling people they're doing a great job and always giving them credit when it's due. And it costs nothing.
Pilot Victor Glover overseeing the deployment of the solar arrays. And we'll follow the attitude maneuver changes ahead of the first burn of the ICPS engine, the perigee raise maneuver.
Planetary Houston, we see 4 saws deployed and latched, ready for ATO preferred.
And we're almost there in the procedure stand, and we see the same thing.
Planetary Houston, we are seeing a 7-second miscompare between the MET on Orion and ICPS. We'd like you to read us the MET from your center status bar and
Welcome to
for the
Business Week
ICPS
Show.
on StackSum.
When my colleagues and I thought about what kind of themes of the magazine we want to turn into episodes of the show, we spoke about envy,
And Stan,
failure,
we see
feuds, family,
absolutely
heists,
precise
generosity,
alignment. MET
legends,
25,
risk,
14,
rivals,
15,
and then we
16,
had a
precisely
really
aligned with
far-out idea.
ICPS MET.
Moonshots. We reached out to many different
Copy,
kinds of
thank you
people,
for that.
including
We'll
like
investigate the
actual
ground
real
issue.
NASA astronauts. The first person that we talked to
And Houston
is
Integrity
a
ATO
billionaire
preferred.
who is spending $100 million
Copy, ATO
to try to
preferred.
cure a rare kind of muscular dystrophy that he has called FSHD by the year 2027. His name is Chip Wilson. He's the founder of Lululemon, and that is one of
This is
the most
Mission Control
valuable
Houston,
apparel
25
brands
minutes,
in the
45
world
seconds
today.
into the flight of
But when we
Artemis
heard
2.
about his life
We have
and his
confirmation
career and
that
his feelings
all
about
4
honesty
solar array
and
wings
one
are deployed
extremely
and
serious
latched.
example of dishonesty, we
This is
decided
the
to
configuration
shoot
needed to
for the
switch to
moon.
ATO preferred, which you
So,
did hear
Tonight's
confirmed from
episode is
pilot
built
Victor
around
Glover.
one
That
interview
mode has
and
been
built around the
switched.
moonshots of one person who doesn't totally think
There's
they're
also a
really
discussion with
moonshots at
Capcom
all.
Stan Love and
Here
Commander Reed
is Chip
Wiseman about the
Wilson.
alignment of the MET clocks on the Orion spacecraft and the ICPS. Commander Reed Wiseman confirmed the clocks are in sync, no issues. They're going to investigate it on the ground. We're proceeding with today's mission. 26 minutes of mission elapsed time and counting.
그대로
This is Mission Control Houston. We're approaching 28 minutes of mission elapsed time into the Artemis 2 mission. At this point, we've had a successful liftoff from the pad at 5:35 p.m. and 12 seconds p.m. Central Time, 6:35 and 12 seconds p.m. Eastern Time. We've had a good main engine cutoff, core stage separation, and a good trajectory to begin today's mission. Right now, the spacecraft has maneuvered tail to sun. We're standing by for another maneuver to maneuver into the burn attitude. This is where the RL-10 engine of the ICPS is pointed in the correct orientation for the perigee raise maneuver. We did hear confirmation that the perigee raise maneuver time of ignition has been confirmed per the pad, which means it was the predicted time prior to liftoff.
Integrity for GNC, we're taking channel 1 to unfiltered and to BFS.
Okay, Stan, we're watching. Go ahead.
Capcom Stan Love rating up to the crew of Integrity. They will switch the navigation source from channel 1, standing by for confirmation that that switch has occurred. Pilot Victor Glover will receive confirmation when, and as at least watching to confirm that that switch has occurred. Again, the perigee raise maneuver that we're heading towards, not too long from now, we're actually inside 20 minutes at this time from the time of ignition of the perigee raise maneuver. We did have a successful deployment and launched of all 4 solar array wings. This is the configuration needed to commit to the perigee raise maneuver. Of course, flight controllers here in Mission Control Houston will continue to evaluate that everything is good before committing to that burn. The perigee raise maneuver does raise the perigee, the lowest point in the orbit, from 15 to 100 nautical miles. The 100 nautical mile mark is needed to continue in low Earth orbit and hit the target for the apogee raise burn. That will put them in a high Earth orbit for the remainder of the day and set them up for the right position to execute the translunar injection and head to the moon tomorrow. The burn duration of the perigee raise maneuver is 26 seconds. A relatively short burn, but it does raise the perigee and do the job to get into the correct position before firing that main engine on the ICPS. The pad had a TDRS handover. This is the tracking and data relay satellites. East to west, they are geosynchronous satellites that are positioned around the globe. And as Orion makes its way around the Earth right now, above the west coast of Africa, at an altitude of about 923 statute miles, and counting. The perigee raise maneuver is not executed at the perigee. It is rather executed on the, actually closer to the apogee. But what it does is it raises the perigee on the other end of the orbit to 100 nautical miles. The 26-second duration burn does not conflict with the time that they've reported of the tracking and data relay satellite handover from TDRS east to west. Again, geosynchronous satellites that are used not only by Integrity today, but the International Space Station as well. That time of handover is 51 minutes, 26 seconds. Plenty of margin before the perigee raise maneuver cutoff happens, and the trajectory is analyzed to see whether it was a good burn Good burn means that the burn was performed as expected and sets the trajectory on course for that 100 nautical mile perigee target mark. Again, for those sticking with us on NASA Plus and following along on our coverage, we will continue to follow and to cover the mission until, actually, we'll continue to cover the mission 24/7. But we'll wrap up our coverage here shortly. And now that solar array wing deployment has occurred on NASA Plus and Amazon Prime. Again, we will continue coverage 24/7 at the NASA YouTube channel. For those that want to see all of the upcoming milestones, there are select times where we will be coming back to NASA Plus and other streaming platforms. You can go to nasa.gov to find the latest on when to find those activities. Given that this is an operational mission, we do want to make sure that we are maintaining transparency in the mission and providing you all the information on what's happening in space as Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen head on their mission around the moon. Inside Integrity at this time, again, the solar array wings have deployed. The Integrity is maneuvering to its burn attitude ahead of the execution of the perigee raise maneuver. Overseeing these steps is primarily done by Commander Reed Wiseman and pilot Victor Glover. Mission specialist Christina Cook and Jeremy Hansen focusing on some of the system activation inside of Orion, namely the environmental and control and life support systems. The activation and checkout of some of these critical systems are very important to continuing on the mission, making sure that those systems are in a good condition and in a reliable condition to provide the necessary environmental and control needs of the crew, with humans on board through the duration of the mission that extends 10 flight days. Standing by for an update to the perigee raise maneuver time of ignition. Should be right up to the crew very shortly.
Integrity Houston, updated PRM numbers when you're ready to copy.
All right, Houston, we are ready to copy.
TIG is 2 seconds earlier at 4 9er minutes for 8 seconds. TIGO unchanged at 2.6 seconds.
49:48, TIGO 26.
This is Mission Control Houston. With that update, we are approaching a little more than 13 minutes from the time of ignition of the perigee raise maneuver. That time updated to be 2 seconds earlier was 49 minutes, 50 seconds of mission elapsed time. We'll now move to 49 minutes, 48 seconds. The duration of the burn, that's what was referred to as the TGO, will still remain at 26 seconds. Relatively short duration burn, again, just raises the perigee of the orbit today. Making sure they hit the mark on that time of ignition is the primary concern of Commander Reed Wiseman and pilot Victor Glover. Mission specialist Christina Cook and Jeremy Hansen inside activating those environmental control and life support systems. At this time, all 4 crew members are wearing the launch and entry suits.
Integrity Houston, for Optimus on the PCD, we have time update instructions when you're ready.
And Houston, Integrity, we copy. Hands are pretty busy at this time. I think we will call you back when we're ready for that.
All right, that one is not urgent. 2 minutes to maneuver to PRM attitude.
We are watching and concurred. 90 seconds-ish, maybe.
Pilot Victor Glover confirming that that maneuver less than 2 minutes. Again, that the point of that maneuver is to point the main engine of the ICPS, the RL-10 engine, in the proper orientation to execute that 26-second burn. It needs to point in the correct position to achieve the goal of raising the perigee to 100 nautical miles. You heard some of the environmental control system activations over Orion to Earth. Jeremy Hansen activated the O2 sensors. They'll be measuring the cabin of Orion. During all of the activations, here on the ground in Mission Control Houston, Flight Director Judd Freeling is doing a poll with all flight controllers in the room to see if we are in a go position to go ahead and execute the perigee raise maneuver. Once concluded, Stan Love will report it back up to the crew, and we'll stand by for that.
Integrity Houston, MCC polls go for PRM pending attitude and saws.
Okay, we copy. MCC is go. Maneuver starting.
Minutes of mission elapsed time. The maneuver to the burn attitude has begun. The maneuver also is paired with reorientation of the solar array wings that have been deployed. They will have various positions throughout the duration of the flight. Of course, solar array is meant to maximize the draw of power from the sun. So when deployed, we're in a biased solar array wing configuration that was called solar normal. This allows for the greatest surface area of the solar array wings to be drawing power and powering up those batteries of Integrity, of which a cross-tie was enabled between the four batteries, the four battery buses that are inside of Orion. However, for the perigee raise maneuver, the solar array wings will be put into a position to take on the loads imparted by the ICPS main engine when they execute the 26-second burn. You can see in the animation here, the solar array wings are in motion, and the attitude is being reconfigured to point the engine in the correct direction, those solar array wings being pointed forward. You're getting a live look inside the Artemis 2 mission flight control room. The team you see here oversaw the ascent of our four astronauts inside Integrity, launching at 6:35 and 12 seconds p.m. Eastern Time. Now, again, this room will be occupied 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with flight controllers shifting on 3 shifts to oversee 24/7 operations of Artemis 2 while in flight. We will cover that live on the NASA YouTube channel, and we'll be covering that around the clock as we begin to wrap up our coverage here on NASA Plus. Before I do want to send it over to our colleagues at the Kennedy Space Center. And to my colleagues, it was a pleasure to join the teams at the Kennedy Space Center and be a part of such a historic launch. Here in Houston, again, we're turning our attention to the mission. And for now, we'll say farewell and thank you to our colleagues there for today's launch coverage. We'll see you again soon for Splashdown. This is Mission Control Houston, sending it back over to Megan and Nicole at the host desk.
Thank you, Gary. And yes, it was such a pleasure to be a part of this historic mission that started right here at Kennedy Space Center. It was such an amazing sight to be a part of. And now, as Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen begin their journey, we here at the Kennedy Space Center are about to wrap our broadcast. We'll, of course, though, have 24/7 coverage with our colleagues at Johnson Space Center starting as soon as we sign off, so don't worry. You can follow along our 4 astronauts every minute of their nearly 10-day journey to the moon and back. Nicole, I'll definitely be watching it, and I'm sure you will, too.
Yes, of course. You know, they just started, right? The launch was beautiful. This was a historic day. They're on their way back to the moon for the first time in over half a century, but they've got a lot of work ahead of them, and so we're excited to see what they have to do and excited to test out the Orion spacecraft. This is a test flight after all, and we're excited to see what we can learn from this mission.
Very humbling, inspiring. It was really amazing to be a part of this, and I'm so glad that so many people joined along by either watching here in person or watching online. And of course, Nicole, thank you so much for sitting through this, answering questions, adding so much context and information that really brought a lot out of what we saw today.
Oh man, I had a blast. You're a rock star. You're a professional. This was great.
Oh, you're great.
So this was a wonderful day.
Well, again, thank you so much, and thank you to you for watching at home. You know, tonight we didn't just launch a rocket, we launched the next chapter of human exploration. Our Artemis 2 crew now on their way back to the moon, and we're taking you with us. So thank you again for watching, and go Artemis 2. All 4 astronauts, and it appears all of them are undergoing their suit leak checks. Yes, a pre-flight tradition that we have seen with our crewed flights, the card game. The astronauts who have just left crew suit up and are now walking down a hallway. And here they are, NASA's Artemis 2 crew, taking their first steps outside for their historic test flight. And the 4 of them step into their astrovan. And off they go. Oh, this must feel so special to the crew to see all of these people here. Watching the crew walk across the crew access arm, getting a beautiful view. Everybody configured with their suits, so in we go. The closeout crew has closed the launch abort system hatch.
3, 2, 1. Booster ignition. And liftoff. The crew of Artemis 2 now bound for the moon. Humanity's next great voyage begins.
Oh. All right, this is Mission Control Houston. Welcome back for our 24/7 coverage of the Artemis 2 mission. At this time, we are a little more than 1 minute from the time of ignition of the perigee raise maneuver. At this time, the Orion spacecraft integrity has been maneuvered into the burn attitude, is pointed in the right direction, and the solar arrays are in the position to take on the loads imparted by the 26-second burn. Now at 1 minute to the perigee raise maneuver. The teams here are part of the ascent team of the Artemis 2 mission. Now getting our first views from one of the solar array wing cameras over the tracking and data relay satellites. We are in a night pass as we are about a little more than 1,300 statute miles above the Earth, just east off the coast of Madagascar. So we have, you can see the Terminator line right just west of the Philippines and the west coast of Australia, where we'll start to get some sunlight again. Now we're just seconds away from the time of ignition. We have ignition. You can see the perigee raise maneuver from the main engine of the ICPS firing from the solar array wing. Standing by for confirmation of cutoff.
Integrity, good PRM, and 1 minute to Teeter's handover.
Copy that. We see the Sable on board, and the sun is rising on integrity.
Outstanding.
And with that, the first burn of the interim cryogenic propulsion system has been completed and put the crew on the right trajectory to get them to the moon.
Houston,
there are
integrity for toilet setup, step 2.5.
Go ahead.
Yes, there was not an installed oxon inlet filter, even with empty oxone, in the hose when I opened up the filter.
This is Mission Control Houston. Again, we had a good perigee raise maneuver that sets us on course to execute the next major burn, the apogee raise burn. Now, the perigee raise maneuver just adjusts the orbit while we are in low Earth orbit, but the apogee raise burn is quite a significant burn, just shy of 18 minutes long.
Ambition and success are similar, but they are not the same. You can be ambitious and a total failure. You can be a success with no ambition at all. If you call someone ambitious, you might not even mean it as a compliment. You might be trying to say they're more of a schemer than a dreamer. The truth is, ambition can be a little embarrassing. The coolest kind of success doesn't seem effortful. It's less manifested than destined. Total ambition about everything, like no ambition about anything, isn't always so ideal. I read this thing in Bloomberg Businessweek about the Google billionaire Sergey Brin, who has spent years backing a secret mission to build giant airships. The rumors he spent more than like $250 million. Now, people don't really know what he's up to, and that can be kind of intriguing, but also kind of scary. And yet, he presses on. So how much ambition is the right amount? And who is to say? Let's be ambitious. We're gonna try to figure it out together tonight. It's the Business Week Show. Welcome to the Business Week Show. Tonight, ambition. The guest who's sitting at this table with me right now has been called the most exciting Black American scholar ever. And that's because the ambitious work that Dr. Cornel West does as an activist, as a philosopher, as an intellectual, as a teacher who quit Harvard not once, but twice, combines the Baptist Church with Chekhov, with Marx, with John Coltrane, with Toni Morrison, and he makes a criticism of American power and money that is bold and italicized. And now he's doing something more ambitious than ever. He is trying to put himself in the most important position in this world, and he aims for nothing less than disrupting and interrupting the landscape of power as we know it. Dr. Cornel West, thank you for being here.
It's a blessing to sit here with you, man.
It's so good to have you here.
Definitely.
Ambition is a complicated subject, but it's a deep one. When is ambition something to be ashamed of, and when is it something to revel in, celebrate?
As long as ambition has a spiritual and moral dimension to it, it's a beautiful thing. Tolstoy was ambitious, Toni Morrison was ambitious, John Coltrane was ambitious, Stephen Sondheim was ambitious. All of these folk who were ambitious really were people who had a profound vocation. See, a vocation is not the same as profession. If you're in a profession and you don't have a vocation, you're going to get caught up in the dominant forces. And what are the dominant forces of our day? Markets, buying, selling, spectacle, image, celebrity.
Let's go back.
Too much narcissism and hedonism and not enough caring and nurturing of others as well as self. But it's always been that way. See, I'm not an alarmist about that.
No, doesn't alarm me?
Oh, no, every moment of human history. It's been a history that's pretty ugly, man. You know, the challenge has always been the self-destructive tendencies of the species.
I want to mention something about Donald Trump, which is that a year before the 2016 election, I sat with him. I reported on his corporate bankruptcies. There were many things that surprised me about being in his presence and talking to him. But one of them back then was he had never had any kind of representative role before in his life. He went from not representing anyone politically to being president. I think it's essentially fair to say the same thing about you. Tell us about why you're qualified in a way that he wasn't in this life you've had where you've done many things, but being a political leader in the regular sense is not one of them.
Yeah, I mean, one is that anytime you engage in high quality service to others, no matter what the context, you have to come with a spirit of humility. You learn and listen. So I'd have to have some high quality folk around me who have spent time in the machinations of the system. But you're right, never holding office. So I'd have to come in with a spirit of humility. But most importantly, you see, we're at the edge of a cliff when it comes to the United States. It's a very, very sad moment because the worst of any country, just like the worst of any human being, is allow that hatred and greed, especially when it's organized, institutionalized, and routinized. It's just almost subversive to try to have integrity, honesty, and decency in a lot of our context. So for me, my role is to reintroduce America to the best of itself. Because we've had some great figures and traditions in the United States. We really have.
I have a financial question. You mentioned the word accountability. You know, there are reports that you have owed hundreds of thousands of dollars in federal taxes, and then a smaller amount, I think tens of thousands of dollars in child support.
Yeah, that was the one that was a lie. I've never actually had any child back payment in that sense, though.
Let's talk about taxes.
Very much. Oh, yes.
It's fair to hold candidates to really high standards.
I agree.
What happened so that you didn't pay, whatever was owed?
Well, one, I've always been broke as the Ten Commandments financially. I've had heavy debts and obligations, both with family as well as getting behind. You see, I had student loans when I first came out, and I got behind way back in the 80s. And there was a time when I had multiple audits. I had knocks on the door to get a subpoena Christmas Eve. And I said, dang, could you all wait for another day? I know I'm behind. But the good news has always been that I set up installment plans. And I've always done that because it's true, and I think that people are right to raise these questions, that money's never really meant that much to me. It really, as long as I can keep my money flow, I live from paycheck to paycheck. Now that's true for 63% of my fellow citizens in the country. The richest nation in the history of the world. You got CEOs running around here multi-million dollars every year. And these precious citizens barely making it. I do, in fact, recognize my checks are bigger, but my debts are bigger. And I've always been chasing that next check in order to make it, but I've always been open about that.
Is it something that you're going to work on, I guess, now and but before the election to try
It's
to
the
clear
same
away?
because I've always had the installment plans in place. But you see, the important thing is, you know, the great Melville, our greatest novelist, he used to say that truth is a ragged edge. He said, if you're really committed to truth, it means you're not just speaking truth to powerless, you're also speaking truth to yourself. See, and that's Socratic, isn't it?
It's not easy.
Self-examination, that's self-scrutiny. And it takes a certain kind of courage to do that. Not just in private, but in public.
Are there things that you've found when you look inside that you don't like?
For myself? Oh, absolutely. I'm a human being. I'm a cracked vessel, my brother. I got revolutionary potential. I got thuggish proclivities. And I'm wrestling with this every day. Kendrick Lamar has the same wrestling. I like that. Any decent human being does. Michael Hurley does.
Michael Hurley.
Oh, yes, those valley of tears that he finds himself in, stealing the right to live. Tell the truth, Brother Michael, about yourself. But he bounced back. Tupac bounces back. I attempt to bounce back, but it's human, all the way down, Brother Max.
Let's talk about capitalism. Do you feel optimistic, something akin to optimistic about American capitalism? Can you imagine a world where capitalism somehow allows us to fix climate change, to somehow heal inequality? Can you envision a world where that happens?
Well, one is that you can never downplay the creativity of human beings. There's no doubt that the virtues of markets have to do with scientific breakthroughs and technological innovations. It's a beautiful thing. What you have to do is to make sure the markets are subordinate to public welfare. But unfortunately, especially in the United States, it's very difficult to be optimistic about American capitalism. It's had a long time to generate these results. In my campaign, I'm calling for an abolition of poverty, abolition of homelessness, strong defense of workers, strong defense of women, control over bodies and so forth, and a real accountability of the organized greed at the top. You see, so in that sense, I wouldn't say optimistic, but I'm not optimistic about anything.
You're not?
Very important. Oh, no.
You seem like an optimist to me.
Oh, no, I'm a blues man. There's no optimism in the blues.
I want to ask you not about what other people think, but about what you would think and how you would self-examine if the day came when, as Republicans, I think, ambitiously hope in their own way, you peel off votes from Biden, Trump wins. How will it square with your values and your internal voice? What would happen on that day if that day came?
I think we have to be, even in the political context, even though we're aware of strategic and tactical considerations, you do have to be honest about what's inside of you. And let me give you an example of this. I mean, you know 40% of U.S. citizens don't vote at all, and that's what I'm targeting. And 62% of those who vote third party, either Libertarian or Green, say they would never, ever, ever vote for Democrats or Republicans. So we're only talking about a small slice. But I can tell you this, the flip side is, if I remain silent, or if I begin talking about how wonderful Biden is when I don't believe it, that's a violation of my integrity. So that I do understand, you know, that kind of finger pointing, you are the cause of fascism in America because you got 4% and so and so and so. Yes, that's something that I wrestle with. That's part of that Civil War, the battlefield of my soul, too.
What I'm learning is that your real ambition is to be a kind of transcendent existential pressure. inside the country to provide something that you think is not there?
Well, it's a beautiful way of putting it, but I wouldn't use the word transcendent. See, I'm a funk master. It's not transcendent. It's immanent. It's grounded in the culture and lived experiences of ordinary people, or those Sly Stone call everyday people. And that's true for all of the social movements. They have transcendent visions because it embraces everybody, no matter what color and gender and so forth. But it is in the funk. And the problem of America is it tends to deodorize its funk. When you playing your guitar, you know where the funky notes are, you see.
The only wrong thing you said is that I don't think I'm a very funky guitar player.
Well, you sound good to me.
Okay,
so I'm telling you that.
I'll take it. Dr. Cornel West, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really, really enjoyed it.
This was wonderful, though, brother.
It was wonderful for me. Coming up next, a director, a model, an activist. But is she ambitious? Stay tuned. What do you call it when high-end American fashion all but leaves out the faces of black women? You call it high-end American fashion. The guest who's sitting with me at this table didn't just reshape what beauty looks like on TV, in magazines, and on runways. She helped debunk the myth that the imagery of black beauty does not sell. Beth Ann Hardison's ambition as a model agency owner, and as an advocate wasn't just to thrive, which she did, it was to blaze paths for other people to follow. And now, at 81, she is the co-director and the subject of an ambitious new film called Invisible Beauty. Beth Ann Hardison, so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Can we talk about just like the very specific word ambition? There's something I think maybe sometimes it's like has a little like a little glow of nastiness maybe, you know, like ambition sounds a little bit meaner than like drive or determination. To me, you're such an interesting and ambitious person. What does like how do you even feel about the word?
It's not like I don't like the word. I just don't think that I really am the one who really demonstrates it in the way that I think it's meant. Ambition to me is someone who actually plans to actually do something and do it in such a way that they work towards it, like becoming a doctor, a singer, a musician. The ambition has to be there. The passion has to be there. I come along like a troubleshooter, but it's not a plan before that until I see the problem. To me, that's just like someone who's a house cleaner. You know, they're domestic. They just go, oh, there's dust on it. Oh, let me just wipe that off.
And that's you.
That's me to me.
I want to ask you about your son, though, because when you modeled, you always kept a second job. And one reason why is that you were raising, sort of semi-secretly from the industry, a kid. You had a child.
Yeah.
You've said, my son and I needed to cross the line, the winning line. He became an actor. He played Dwayne Wayne on A Different World. How did you encourage a sense of ambition in him? And tell us about the toll that it took on your relationship.
I think what it really was is that, you know, I got pregnant when I was a young girl, and I think it was a fear of just failing. I got lucky that it worked out another way, and I wind up being successful in my own way, you know. But I think the reason why I was had to give Kadeem something to do is because he never knew what he wanted to be.
I love the story that you gave him a scene to be a boy with a missing dog. You know, you turned him on to acting. You encouraged it. But look, I mean, it was your idea, not his. Do you have you thought yourself, or have you talked to him about the way that instilling ambition in other people can sometimes be a little dangerous?
I don't think it's, and I like that you're stuck on this word ambition. Because you and I should go out on a date. We can argue this point.
Oh, thank you so much. It's the first time I've been asked out on this television show. Thank you, Beth.
Because I tell you, I didn't think I was trying to impose ambition. That's for you to do on your own. I think what I was doing is really basically giving him an opportunity to grasp something. Ambition, I don't think you can really teach people ambition.
Let's talk about you and your drive and your career. So in 1980, you became an agent at Click Models. I think you represented a very young Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
Then you start your own agency.
Yeah.
It's Beth Ann Management.
Yeah.
And you discover Veronica Webb.
Yeah.
Then you discover Tyson Beckford.
Yeah.
Whose contract with Ralph Lauren was, I think, also
that was major.
What did it feel like to channel your drive, your ambition, if you want, through other people to help them succeed. It was no longer about you as a model. You were channeling other people. How did that feel?
I didn't want to have a model agency. The last thing I wanted was a model agency, but they made me do it. Most things that I'm doing, someone made me do it. It's never my ambition to say, oh, I'm going to do this.
Will you let me try to be ambitious myself and push back on something?
Go ahead.
Okay. We talk about your extremely ambitious career, and you're like, no, I wasn't really that ambitious. We talk about your son, who you push into acting, and you were like, well, no, I wasn't really doing that. And we talk about you starting a modeling agency, and you say, oh, I didn't want to start a modeling agency.
It's true.
But Beth Ann, is it possible that that there's something about you and the way that you look at your career where you undersell the challenges that you faced instead of doing what most people do, which is oversell them?
Yeah, I'll even get better. I didn't have a career. What I have is many different things I do. You know, I used to have people who stand behind me, and I used to say, this is my backup band. They can explain me better than I can. And people would step in front of me when I would be introduced to someone. They say, oh, please, she's so modest. Let me tell you what she's done. I don't take it on so well. I see that.
Why do you think that is?
I think because I don't think that much of it in the act of doing it. I think that it's something that just had to be done. Someone had to do it.
Be a little less rosy now.
Okay.
So in '96, you closed your agency.
Yeah.
You moved to Mexico. You said, I had no idea what I'd do next because I had no ambition. I had no ambition. If you have no ambition, you don't know what you're going to do. You just make sure you don't sink. Well said. You
I got
said
some
it.
good quotes.
You said it.
Those things, oh my gosh.
How did that feel? Take me back to Mexico when it was like you had nothing doing after this decades of action.
I basically knew that I was having a nice downtime. It was good. And I didn't have to worry about doing too much. I still had to work a little bit because I still had Tyson. And then I started getting those calls. I think when I left the industry, New York Times had written an article on me saying who was going to do the work that I had been doing and how important it was. And I was like, oh, please, I'm out of here. You know, don't put that on me. Someone else can pick it up. And then when I started getting those calls about the models had disappeared and all, and I was getting those calls from Naomi, and you got to come back, you got to come back. And I wasn't going that long. It was like 3-4 months or something.
Just to expand on what you're saying that Naomi Campbell was calling you to say the black models are disappearing.
Yes,
and I want to give a little bit more context. You had started an advocacy group called Black Girls Coalition.
Yes.
And that was an advocacy group for models with Aman, with Naomi Campbell.
Yeah, but it was when it first started, just to be clear, when it first started, it was just to celebrate the girls, to introduce them to each other, because so many of them were working, you know, doing editorial, which had never happened before, but they don't know that. They're the first ones on the scene. I've been around. I've known this is the first time. Then eventually, in about 4 years later, 3 or 4 years later, I decided to go up against the advertising industry.
Right.
Because they were not reflecting their consumer.
And you tell me you're not ambitious.
No, that's not Hey, can I get a...
because this is serious stuff. I mean, look, the reality is you played a really important role in getting black faces onto runways and into magazines. But then, lo and behold, what happens? The faces start disappearing.
Yeah.
The diversity, as it so often does in corporate America, especially, it makes progress and then it comes back.
Yeah.
What was it like to see failure following progress, and what did you do about it?
Well, that's the thing. You always say, you know, you go 3 steps forward and you fall 4 steps back or something like that. And it took me 4 years before I can really get back on that horse. I'm coming back and okay. That wasn't so much like ambition to me. That's more like, once again, like revolutionary. That I live with very well. I believe I am. I know I am.
I want to bring up something else you said, and it's about change. You said, I always know, because I've lived life long enough, you can change things. You might need to be foot against your pedal, but you can change things.
Yeah.
There are so many forms of like being driven, you know, but I feel like it's so rare for people to aim to make things better for other people instead of themselves.
I think when I leave here, I'm going to feel different. I think you're really convincing me. I'm going to go out of here with my head held high, and a big head too. I'm going to swell this head up, and I'm going to try and get through that door.
Well, then I'll walk out with a swollen head too, if that's what you're saying. I think I want to end, if you don't mind, Beth Ann. At the end of your film, you talk about dying, going home.
Yeah.
A good end to a good life? I mean, that seems like the most beautiful ambition that I could think of, I think. If you don't mind talking about it, what would you like it to feel like?
When I leave this earth? Not so painful. I want people to celebrate, have a good time. I know I'm going to be buried upstate New York in a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful cemetery. And I just hope that I just cruise right along and that something is left behind that remembers. One thing I would like to do, and this is requiring ambition.
Okay.
I want to do a one-woman show.
Are you going to do it? What's stopping you?
Yeah, I got to finish this film. The film keeps going on. And also, I just need to finish this book. And, you know, fear stops me, you know, because that's scary. The one-woman show is not like a stand-up comedian. I'm going to do it interactively with the audience. I'm just going to tell stories. But I always wanted to do that.
Will it be okay if I or if the world remembers you as an ambitious woman?
Yeah, you can do anything you want once I'm gone.
It's a deal. Beth Ann Hardison, thank you so much for being here.
I'm happy I came. I learned a lot about me this time.
So did I.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. It was extremely ambitious to think that we could learn about ambition, how much of it is enough, how much of it is too much, by just asking ambitious people to tell us. As it turns out, sometimes we can easily recognize the ambition inside of us, and then sometimes we totally rebel against the very concept. Maybe the lesson is that ambition is something to recognize inside of ourselves and something to be proud of, as long as it's wielded wisely. Maybe the most